Prison 2 weeks ago with an ISIS emir, and he got extremely ashamed after watching it and couldn't keep up justifying his actions inside ISIS. He even said we were mistaken after watching it. So please play the film.
لا عجبوني كثير بس بعدين ما عدا درسنا انه كتاب يعلمنا منو ربك ومنو رسولك وشنو دينك. المعسكر ظلينا بيه بس شهر، لا عسكري لا حنية ولا شي، تدريب صعب وضرب سلاح واللي ينسى حاله وقت انه شايل السلاح الحقيقي يحط يده على الكبسة يحط الخرطوم بصبعه يطعجه هيج شوية لا يكسر له. مو أكثر من الكبار، أصغر بيهم 15 16. ما جو بالبيكام وخذوا قالوا له اليوم القصاص عليك، انت بدك تقص الكافر المرتد. ركب بالبيكام وراح وخذ الزرقاوية معاه وصل غادي ما مربط هو من دينه، قابه من شعره حط السكينة على راسه وبلش يسوي بيه هيك لمن ما قص راسه. بيعام تنزعج بقلبها بس ما جرب يسولف. اللي يفرح بما غصبا عنهم كلهم بدهم يفرحون يصيحون الله أكبر، بس ينزعج ما يجرب يقول ينزعج أو منهم أو يقولون ما يصير يتعاقب. أنزعج بالمية يحطونهم بالقفص، يجي 5 6 يسكرون عليهم القفص، ينزلون القفص بالمية يقولون ما يقربون يفطسون ويطالعونهم يظلون يعذبونهم هيك، ما حد يعرف شنو ذنبهم أو شنو هم. ويحطون الناس بالسيارة ويضربونها بالقاذف. شفت كنت عارف انه يدربون عجان صغار ما يعرفون كل شيء، ولو العجان صغار اللي جاي يروحون على التفجير يعرفون التفجير ما يروحون. كنت اشوفهم يدربون عجان على التفجير، قلت نهارين نوب 3 يدربون يعني زاد ابطل خير ما يدربون. عارف انه معسكرنا راحوا من الكبار والصغار حوالي 15 على التفجير، ما كلها تقول لا حد دخل الجنة. قاموا اللي يجون قديمين علينا نتعرف عليهم عندهم هواتف، شوفونا على الانترنت انه عالم جاي تقول تفجير حرام، جاي تموت عالم ما لها شغل ولازم يموتون ما جاي يجيهم شيء. ومن هذا حكي نسمع عالم ما لها شغل من ذبحة وصغار كبار. خسرت وطني كل شيء. أقول لكل طفل بالعالم بدي أقول لهم لا تنضمون للتنظيم هذا، التنظيم هذا مو مسلم، هذا كفار يذبحون الأبرياء وكل شيء يسوونه، ومو جايين مشان الجهاد، جايين بس مشان المصاري، واللي ينضم لهم ما يقدر يقشرهم بسهولة ويسوون حالهم مسلمين يدربون العالم على التفجير ويقولوا تدخل على الجنة، وهذا كله كذب ما بي شيء منه صحيح. وحاول أقنعهم إنه ما ينضمون مع الدولة.
Thank you. And they're all on YouTube. They're for you. You can use them any way you want to fight ISIS, and we're making more. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming and for bearing with us till the 4th panel. I'm sure that everyone is tired as we are, but we can promise you a very interesting panel that's worth the time and worth the effort. Let me start by introducing Elisabeth Kendell, the Senior Research Fellow at the University of Oxford. Welcome. And Lorenzo Vidino, the Director of the Program on Extremism at George Washington University. You got some interesting stories about the center as well. We'll talk about that shortly. As well, let me introduce Dr. Jack Caravelli, Senior Advisor to Global Resources Partnership and former Director of Non-Proliferation Policy, Russia and Middle East. You must have a tough job back then, I'm sure. And I would like to introduce as well Dr. Yahya bin Mohammed Abu-Mughayid, رئيس الدراسات بمركز محمد بن نايف للمناصحة والرعاية، وهو دكتور في التحليل الاستراتيجي وفي إدارة المعرفة. I will start shortly with, very quick remarks. So much papers with me, huh? About the topic that we are about to discuss, which is the regional perspective or the regional image when it comes to countering terrorism. Actually, what comes to my mind were 3 points. The first point is, I've heard in the morning Prince Turki al-Faisal talking about the several Muslim scholarship schools or doctrines. He mentioned the Shafi'i, the Maliki, and the rest. Minister Ashton Carter was talking about the importance of the Islamic alliance in terms of that the West doesn't have, let's say, the know-how, the knowledge, the identity know-how, the identity sense and sensibility of this battle. And he highlighted the importance of having this Islamic alliance at place and for the sake of a better battle, let's say, with terrorism and radicalism. What this triggered in my mind is the fact that after a long period of time of being shy, apologetic, trying to be as much as politically correct as possible when it comes to Islam and terrorism or Islam and radicalism, finally we are witnessing a very interesting battle that is unfolding. It's a fight over the soul of Islam. And it's happening inside the Islamic world. It's happening inside Islam itself. It's a battle over who owns the narration of Islam. What is Islam? We always hear this sentence that this side or that side or this action or that action doesn't really represent, between brackets, the true Islam. So what's happening now from my own perspective is a true battle and a fight over the true narration or the true Islam or the soul of Islam, and I prefer this term over any other term. And in this battle, I have to say that Daesh and Nusra and Hezbollah and all of these, breeds of radicalism, they are less politically correct than us. They say things as they are. They are blunt. They are populist, very effective. When it comes to the liberal narration of Islam, or I'm using very confusing and very controversial terms, but when it comes to our narration about true Islam or how we understand true Islam, we are stuck with the political correctness, with an unhealthy dose of being apologetic. And I think in the narration battle, we need to do a way better job. The second point, and to finish with my first remark, the Islamic world looks like the Europe of 1945. We have a devastated intellectual infrastructure, the same way Europe was devastated by its actual physical infrastructure. Their solution was a fabulous coalition of forces that is known as the Marshall Plan. We need a cultural Marshall Plan in Islam to reconstruct the intellectual infrastructure of Islam. And this is, I think, a major mission that Muslims alone cannot do, West civilization alone can't do, but this growing alliance probably can be an answer to this question. My second point is that we're living in a region, and the topic is the region and terrorism. We live in a region where there is a very severe fragility when it comes to the structure or the state structure. Unfortunately, the number of failed states is way bigger than the number of successful, between brackets again, states. If you look at Levant, you have Iraq, Syria. If you look at the Gulf region or Jazira al-Arabiya, you have Yemen. If you look at North Africa, you have Libya. So the fragility of the state structure is exposed in a way that has not been exposed probably since the fall of the Ottoman Empire. This brings me to the third and last comment, which is the alliance between terrorism and revolutionism in investing in this fragility of the state structure. We're seeing this through Al-Qaeda. We've seen this in the ISIS connecting parts of Iraq with parts of Syria. We've seen this with Hezbollah creating a mini state within a state. We've seen this in many other places, probably some trials and errors, thankfully, in Egypt, in Sinai desert. So basically, these are the three main features that when I look at the terrorism and the region that come to my mind. I will finish with these three remarks and we'll start the discussion with the gentleman.
Thank you very much. And it's a real pleasure to be here. I want to be acknowledging, first of all, the King Faisal Center for the opportunity to be here. It's a real honor. I think I'm going to start with a region, with a view of a different region, actually, more the West, and the way some of the issues that we're discussing here about the Middle East are seen in the West and are affecting the West. We have seen in a lot of the panels that we heard during the day the very dire terrorist threat that has confronted both North America, but even more Europe. We've heard the numbers, the 6,000 foreign fighters who went to Syria and Iraq, the 50 attacks that we have seen in the West over the last 3 years. And obviously, it's a very complex situation. We try to see what the roots are, and obviously the debate in all Western countries is what the roots of this dynamics are, and we've all agreed today that are very complex roots. Any explanation that looks at just one factor is inevitably flawed. There's obviously roots here in the Middle East. Had Daesh and other groups not been so successful, I doubt we would see the level of mobilization we have seen in a lot of Western countries. It's undeniable that the enthusiasm that the successes on the ground that those groups have had has triggered enthusiasm in the West. Some of the roots are also to be found in the West. It is undeniable that some of the social conditions we have seen in the West have been fertile ground for some of the radicalization dynamics that we've experienced. It's undeniable that of the 6,000 individuals who have decided to leave the West and travel to Syria and Iraq, these are individuals who, for one reason or the other, do not feel like they belong in a certain society. Some of them have undeniable, as we heard today, problems when it comes to integration. There are undeniable issues of socioeconomic disenfranchisement. Although, and undeniably, most approaches, whether it's the multicultural, the laïcité, French system, any approach has to some degree failed. Although I would warn what is the common narrative that it's a complete failure. I would argue that obviously the media likes to focus on problems of integration of Muslim communities in the West, but there are a lot of success stories. It's not that disaster that I think we often hear about in the media that focuses on the negatives, as it's normal with the media. Undeniably, there's these social conditions, but we know full well that it's not just about poverty, it's not just about discrimination. it's also about ideology. I think it was Peter Neumann this morning that was telling us that the left tends to focus on the poverty side of things, the right more on ideology. And the reality is in the middle. It's a mix of these elements. But who provides the ideology? Where do people that embrace ISIS message pick up that message? And it comes from many places. It comes from the internet, but it comes also from a lot of actors on the ground that do feed that message, that do convey that narrative. It's a very broad mix of organizations, and I think you will find in the West a lot of groups similar to those that you will find in the region in the Middle East. The debate has shifted a lot over the last 2 or 3 years, I would say, in most Western countries. And of course, it's very different from country to country. We cannot really lump them all together. But you will see that in a lot of Western countries, the debate has shifted quite a bit from looking exclusively at violent extremism into looking also at non-violent extremism, in understanding that it's a very complex relationship between the two. And it's the assumption that all non-violent extremists will become violent extremists is wrong, but it is also true that many will. And it's also true that organizations that provide a narrative that is extremist, albeit not directly endorsing violence, do provide what is often referred to as a mood music, as a fertile environment for more radical groups to recruit. I think one group on which a lot of the attention has been focused on in the West is the Muslim Brotherhood. And we see a lot of debates over the last 3 or 4 years in a variety of countries having shifted. Again, we can't generalize. Policies change and attitudes change from country to country and from political force to political force in each Western country. But if 4 or 5 years ago there were, generally speaking, positive attitudes toward the Muslim Brotherhood, a variety of events have made that change in most Western countries. Some of the events are the events that have taken place in the Middle East, particularly in Egypt, but also in other countries, I would say. But I think a lot of the reasons why some Western governments have changed attitude, it's the dynamics that I've seen on the ground in Europe and in North America to a lesser degree. As I'm sure a lot of you know, Muslim Brotherhood organizations have long established a presence in Western countries. Back already in the 1950s, when Nasser started cracking down on the organization, we started to have the first movement of Ikhwanis who left Egypt, and then you have similar dynamics from other countries in the region, and went to Europe, went to North America, and set up a lot of organizations, a lot of networks, which over time have evolved, but have been quite engaged in spreading a certain interpretation of Islam in the West. And I think what we are seeing now is that different governments have decided that these organizations provide, rather than a bulwark against radicalization, they do provide in some cases the mood music. So the policies change from, and I think I have a minute probably left, right? Not even. The policies change from country to country. There's a debate in many countries, and the US is the first one, about designating the Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. I think that's an unlikely scenario. In most countries, that is not going to happen. Sir John Jenkins in the UK led a review a couple of years back of the Muslim Brotherhood in the UK, and the result was basically saying that it is very difficult, at least from a Western perspective, to designate the Brotherhood as a terrorist organization. But that doesn't mean that it's an exoneration of the Brotherhood, and there are clear ties, at least from an ideological perspective, to the violence that we see. So the response, I think, in most Western countries in the years to come, and again, difficult to generalize, will be, if not a legal ban, if not shutting it down, which is also very difficult to do, it's not seeing these organizations as part of the solution, but rather as part of the problem, in probably legitimizing them less, as they have done in the past, as not seeing them as spokespeople for Muslim communities. I think we need more research and we need more nuance about the ties between violent and non-violent extremism, but I think from another region, I think that's sort of the dynamic that we are seeing.
Lorenzo, thank you so much. Indeed, you raised so many important issues, especially the social condition of of terrorism and radicalism. I'm always dazzled by this correlation between the social condition and terrorism. I'm rather on the side of the ideological connection of the debate, and we'll discuss this later. I'll move to the left side of the panel to Dr. Elisabeth Kendell. The floor is yours.
I'm going to talk about my research in Yemen, and I'd like to say how grateful I am for this opportunity to the King Faisal Center. It's a real privilege. It's my first time in Saudi Arabia. I've been going into Yemen, however, for the past 5 years, and mostly working in the east, in Hadramaut and Al-Mahra. And it's afforded me the opportunity to observe how radical groups such as Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula have managed to gain ground. I think so much of the attention of the international media and governments, and in fact today as well, has been on Islamic State, understandably, that we perhaps lose sight a little of Al-Qaeda still there in the background, and in Yemen at least, playing a much longer game, which actually could prove more dangerous and durable in the long term. I think I will just go back very quickly to this question that has cropped up so much today. What makes a terrorist? What is it that radicalizes? And we've had lots of interesting and nuanced views. And unlike what we read in our press, the views today are not just based on intuition. Oh, it's frustration with the economy or lack of opportunity. Today's analysts, from Professor Peter Neumann to my co-panelists here, are actually using data-driven approaches, and this is incredibly important. But what I would add to that is that, and I'm sure they wouldn't disagree, is that this data needs to be heavily, heavily localized. Because what tends to happen is that one of us scholars publishes some results, and immediately the media and governments latch onto this and extrapolate globally, and that's simply not the case. What radicalizes someone in Syria or France or Australia is quite different from what might radicalize someone in Yemen. And so we have to be very careful of that. What I tried to do was to go there and to ask. So I conducted a survey where I asked over 2,000 tribesmen and tribeswomen about their various attitudes towards life. One result was that only 21% of respondents in the east of Yemen said that they wanted their religious leaders to have a say in all matters of life. So 80% roughly didn't. And yet these were precisely the communities where in 2015, for an entire year, Al-Qaeda was able to entrench and run a state, essentially, out of Al-Mukalla. How did this happen? Well, the question is not so much how were people radicalized. I actually think this is the wrong question in the Yemen context, because even at the height of the Al-Qaeda state, there were only about 4,000 core mujahideen. Now there are about 1,000, we estimate. And that's a population of 27 million in Yemen. The problem is not radicalization, it's passive toleration. It's the creation of broad support networks, particularly in tribal areas. How does that work? Why is it that people tolerate Al-Qaeda? Don't forget, this is a well-armed population. My survey also showed that households have more guns than they have books. They would be difficult to terrorize. They're used to war. They're used to fighting. So something else is at work here. I would love to go into details, but of course there's no time. So let me leave you with just my abiding thought on how this works according to my research. When I visited Yemen at the height of the Al-Qaeda state at the end of 2015 and spoke with community leaders from Mukalla, They complained to me most of the night about Al-Qaeda, we need some help, we need to get rid of these guys, we don't like it. And when I suggested that we continue that conversation the following day, they said, no, we can't do that, we have a meeting with Al-Qaeda leaders. So this seemed like a contradiction, but what they said was, well, they're helping me with a water problem in my village, in my family's village, and they're actually helping sort out a land issue. And this to me was very revealing. When I analyzed the Twitter feed of Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula, and I did analyze every single tweet, I realized that 56% of tweets were about community development projects. Only 3% were about hudud punishments of Islamic law, cutting off someone's hand or stoning someone for adultery. Just 3%. And this was no accident. And yet, of course, it's that 3% that the international media jump on. And that creates a false view of how these dynamics work. Actually, on the ground, it's quite different. All right, I have half a minute. So I think what to take away from this is, what can we learn from the terrorists themselves? One would be that our two main approaches to terrorism, perhaps, one is military, the other is patronage, buying support. There is a place for both of these. I'm not someone who argues against military action. I totally understand why it's necessary. But as former panelists today suggested, including the Minister Fratterini, including John Jenkins, including Peter Neumann, we really have to address grassroots levels. We have to address, I think, community development issues and particularly education. And this needs to be much more bottom-up and much less top-down if we're going to make an impact. Thank you.
Elisabeth, thank you so much. You're on the same side with Lorenzo, and this will create some kind of interesting debate shortly, I hope. Dr. Jack Caravelli, the floor is yours.
To our friends at the King Faisal Center, my great appreciation for the invitation. I know you pulled this conference together in very short notice. It's a remarkable achievement, so we should all thank you. Wanted to get out of the level of transnational and subnational groups, spend a minute or two on Iran. As I was thinking about this discussion today, I was struck that sometimes when we're in the middle of events, we don't see the historical sweep. It may well be that we look back a year or 5 years or 10 years from now and think this weekend was particularly significant in at least two ways. The first was the return to the presidency of Iran by Mr. Rouhani. But the second, juxtaposing that, was the arrival, and apparently so far, very successful trip of new President Donald Trump. And I'm wondering, as they sit in Tehran today and they look at the results so far of the Trump visit, what conclusions they are beginning to draw. For me, as an American who has lived in Washington and worked in the US government in policy and intelligence for probably too many years, I am struck by the incredible difference that is palpable in Washington over Donald Trump's, I think, growing approach, and this will deepen, to this region. It is almost diametrically opposed to that of his predecessor, Barack Obama. Trump made very clear during the presidential campaign how he felt about the Iran nuclear deal. I very much side with him. I disagree with my distinguished colleague this morning, the former Secretary of Defense, Ash Carter. I think the nuclear deal fails in at least two ways, and one is directly related to what we're doing here. The first way it fails is it could have been and should have been negotiated with much more vigor in terms of addressing Iran's missile program. The nuclear deal is essentially, as the Americans would put it, a kick the can down the road approach. And that may have been great for President Obama and his legacy, but anyone who believes the Iran nuclear program is resolved, I think it will be sadly and unfortunately disappointed. But the second way that the deal fails really goes to the heart of this wonderful day of exchanging lots of insights. The deal de facto brings Iran back into the community of nations. The Europeans are tripping over themselves to do business with Iran. Iran has had unfrozen billions of dollars of assets as part of the deal as well. As the Iranians have said themselves, they are now open for business. And why does this matter? It matters, among other things, because Iran has failed in what was Obama's fondest hope. President Obama, in his heart of hearts, I believe, and I've talked to others on this, felt that Iran, through the deal, through encouragement, could become a more mature, responsible member of the international community. What we know for a fact is there's nothing in the deal in any way, any political results that came from that have induced Iran in any way to moderate, mitigate its support to the instability of the region, to its hostility to Saudi Arabia, to its hostility to the United States. And that's unfortunate. So I believe our former president miscalculated, but the sweep of history may turn out to be, and we don't know this yet, that Donald Trump, for all the criticism, and some of it is justified, he has taken in Washington, that he has, by his presence here, his first visit on his first trip, it's not a coincidence that he's in Saudi Arabia. So there's great symbolism to this. It'll be incumbent on the Americans to follow through on the deal, as it will be for Saudi Arabia. But I think we can look at this, and we'll look back on this, as the re-engagement of America in the Middle East in a way that, and a priority that was not those of Barack Obama. So I see a great distinction between this new president, his predecessor, and we will see where it goes. So we have great hopes, but again, you know, we can have philosophies, ideologies, theories, but to someone who's been a practitioner, as I have for many years, the proof is in the actions. And again, at the end of the day, we look at Iran's actions, its support to Hezbollah, support to the butcher in Syria, to Palestinian groups, its activities in Yemen, and we know that notwithstanding the U.S. president's fondest hopes, that Iran has not changed, and it's hard to see any viable scenario by which we'll look at over the next 2, 3, 4 years and find much difference in Iranian behavior or Iranian policy. Thanks.
Thank you so much. It's interesting what you said about Iran and the lack of moderation effect of the nuclear deal on Iran. It's interesting in light of the current elections, where basically Rouhani was running against Mahdi, not against Raisi. I still recall the headline of Kayhan newspaper. They said that if Rouhani is elected, Imam al-Mahdi will not come, will not appear again. Yet the Iranian people ought to vote for Rouhani versus Mahdi. So I think the nuclear deal has some moderation factor on the Iranian community, not necessarily reflected in the political institutions. And if it was reflected in the image of Rouhani, it's not necessarily reflected in the decision-making process, which is absolutely controlled by Imam Khamenei. But would love to touch on this issue later. Dr. Yahya bin Mohammed Abu-Mughayid, تفضل.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Actually, my paper, it's about the unconventional counter-terrorism approach. And because we have good translators here, I will talk in Arabic. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. الورقة ستتحدث في الحقيقة عن المواجهة غير التقليدية والتي هي تعكس صورة إقليمية لمواجهة هذه الظاهرة وبشكل متميز. وأقدم هذه الورقة نيابة عن سعادة اللواء الدكتور ناصر بن محي المطيري مدير مركز محمد بن نايف للمناصحة والرعاية. سنعرج بشكل سريع على أهم النقاط والأفكار التي تتناولها هذه الورقة. في الحقيقة المواجهة غير التقليدية لظاهرة الإرهاب هو الاتجاه الذي اتبعته المملكة قبل 12 عاماً من الآن في التعامل مع هذه الظاهرة. هذه المواجهة غير التقليدية في الحقيقة هي لا تنفك عن الجانب الأمني وأيضاً الجانب القضائي أو النظامي، ولكن هذا الجانب هو يتميز ويتباين مع هذين الجانبين، حيث يعمل هذا البعد خارج مسرح الجريمة. بينما يركز الجهد الأمني والجهد القضائي على مسرح الجريمة، هذا الجانب وهو البعد الغير التقليدي يعمل خارج مسرح الجريمة، وبالتالي فهو يعود إلى جذور ومسببات الإرهاب ويحاول أن يتعامل معها بشكل منهجي وأيضا علمي، وهو يركز على من ارتكبوا هذه الجريمة، يركز على جانب الضحية في هؤلاء الأشخاص وليس على الجانب الإجرامي. أيضا هو يبتعد عن الدائرة المركزية ويتوسع في الحقيقة ليغطي مختلف الدوائر الأخرى حتى يصل إلى تغطية المجتمع بشكل عام. مقومات هذا الجانب الغير تقليدي هو في الحقيقة يعتمد على العديد من المقومات. أولها هو تطبيق الجانب العلمي في مواجهة هذه الظاهرة، وأعتقد أن كثير من البحوث في الحقيقة قد أطلقت لدراسة هذه الظاهرة، ولكن التميز في المملكة العربية السعودية أن هذه الدراسات هي ارتبطت بمن ارتكبوا جرائم الإرهاب، حيث أجريت دراسات ميدانية على هؤلاء الأشخاص أيضا من قبل خبراء متخصصين في المجال النفسي والاجتماعي وأيضا في المجال الأمني، وطبقت أدوات علمية في الحقيقة منهجية استطاعت أن تصل بنا من خلال هذه الدراسات إلى نتائج أفضت إلى بناء هذا الإطار غير التقليدي. أيضا امتداد لهذه الدراسات وللنتائج التي وصلت إليها في الحقيقة تم إنشاء العديد من الكراسي العلمية التي تعتني بهذا الجانب الهام المرتبط بجريمة الإرهاب، وهذه الكراسي العلمية ترعاها الجامعات السعودية، فلدينا أكثر من 10 كراسي علمية في الحقيقة تناقش مثل هذه الظاهرة. هذا هو الأساس الأول. بالطبع الأساس الأول هو ما بني عليه بقية المقومات، ونأتي إلى المقوم الثاني وهو المواجهة الفكرية. فكنتيجة لهذه الدراسات كان العامل الفكري، بالتالي العامل الإيديولوجي، هو المحرك لهذه الظاهرة، ونستطيع القول بأنه عامل يأتي في البداية ويأتي في المنتصف ثم يأتي في النهاية، هو يأتي بشكل عام كغطاء لهذه الظاهرة. وبالتالي أضافت المملكة إلى استراتيجيتها لمواجهة الإرهاب البعد الفكري، والذي تعمل من خلاله العديد من المنظمات في الحقيقة والعديد من البرامج. أيضا هذا البعد ثالثا يقوم على ما يسمى نموذج الحلقات. الذي لا يغطي الفرد الذي أدين في قضايا الإرهاب فقط، وإنما يمتد ليغطي الأسرة ثم يتوسع ليصل إلى المجتمع. وهنالك أدوات كثيرة جدا، من أهمها هو ما يسمى ببناء الشراكة المجتمعية لكل البرامج التي تنفذها المملكة في مواجهة هذه الظاهرة. أيضا تطبيق ما يسمى بالمدخل الإنساني للتعامل مع مختلف جوانب هذه الظاهرة، وتطبيق ما يسمى الاستيعاب المبكر ليكون هنالك استباق في المعالجة والوقاية من هذه الظاهرة من خلال الحصول على مؤشرات معينة تساعد في تطبيق هذا الجانب في المواجهة غير التقليدية. أيضا ما يسمى بالتمكين، والتمكين على 4 مستويات. التمكين هذا يمكن هذه الفئات من الحصول على الحقوق التي تبحث عنها بعيداً عن التعبير المدمر، بعيداً عن التعبير غير السوي الذي يضر بها أولاً وبالمجتمعات وأيضاً بالبلد. فهنالك التمكين على مستوى الفرد، هنالك أيضاً التمكين على مستوى الأسرة، على مستوى المجتمع، ثم يأتي التمكين على المستوى الوطني. وهذا التمكين هو ينطلق في الحقيقة لقيادة كل هذه الفئات للحصول على حقوقها بشكل مشروع ودون التجاوز لحقوق الأطراف الأخرى أو للحقوق على المستوى الوطني. بالتالي تستطيع في النهاية أن تؤدي حقوقها على مستوى وطني وبشكل فاعل. أيضا هنالك مقوم التميز والخصوصية. فالمملكة العربية السعودية تواجه هذه الظاهرة من خلال التميز والخصوصية للقضايا التي نعالجها في الداخل. أيضا نراعي التميز والخصوصية لامتداد مثل هذه القضايا لارتباطها بتنظيمات إرهابية خارجية أو أطراف أخرى. أيضا هنالك أطراف أجنبية تعمل أيضا داخل المملكة وتم إدانتها، أيضا نراعي هذه الخصوصية في عملية المعالجة. هذا فيما يتعلق بالبعد غير التقليدي. أيضا يعتمد البعد غير التقليدي على ما يسمى التكامل، وهو التكامل مع مختلف المنظمات ليس فقط على المستوى المحلي وإنما على المستوى الدولي. وما هذا اللقاء إلا ضمن هذا الإطار التكاملي، لأنه يجمع كل المفكرين وكل الأطياف على المستوى العالمي لدراسة مثل هذه الظاهرة. أيضا مقوم آخر وهو النظرة المستقبلية. لا يقتصر هذا الإطار غير التقليدي في الحقيقة على معالجة الحدث، وإنما ينظر نظرة مستقبلية من خلال الحدث الآني، ينظر إلى ما بعد هذا الحدث الإرهابي، ماذا يمكن أن نفعل لاحتواء هذا الحدث وللوقاية منه في المستقبل. أيضا يتم النظر إلى الأحداث المولدة للإرهاب قبل حدوث هذه الجريمة، فيتم النظر على إلى مختلف العناصر والأحداث في المنطقة التي يمكن أن تولد مثل هذه الأحداث الإرهابية. أيضا إلى تلون وتغير التنظيمات الإرهابية وما تطور القاعدة إلى النسخة الجديدة وهي نسخة داعش الأكثر في الحقيقة تدميراً وتأثيراً وفتكاً. في الحقيقة هذا التلون هو جدير بالمتابعة، جدير بالرصد، جدير بمعرفة كل الخلفيات التي تقف خلف هذا النوع. بالتالي هذا الإطار العام للمواجهة غير التقليدية هو في الحقيقة دعم الإطار الأمني ودعم الإطار القضائي والقانوني، وتم تحقيق العديد من الإنجازات سأستعرضها بشكل موجز جدا وأختم بها. فبالتالي تم رفع في الحقيقة سقف المواجهة والمحاصرة لهذه التنظيمات والأحداث الإرهابية. المملكة هي بؤرة استهداف كل التنظيمات الإرهابية منذ ظهور القاعدة ووصولا إلى داعش، ولكن بحمد الله تم تفكيك أو تم محاصرة كل هذه الخلايا وكل هذه الأعمال داخل المملكة العربية السعودية، وتم توسيع المحاصرة وتقليصها إلى أقل حد ممكن. المملكة استهدفت بأكثر من 300 عملية إرهابية، في الحقيقة تم إحباط أكثر من 95% بما يوازي 244 عملية، وبالتالي التنظيمات ما زالت تستهدف المملكة ولكن من خارج المملكة حتى الآن. فبالتالي هذه المحاصرة تم إشراك كل أطياف المجتمع، كل المنظمات، أيضا على المستوى الدولي. أيضا تم إشراك الأسرة وتفعيل دورها بشكل فاعل وكبير جدا في هذه المواجهة وعلى مستويات مختلفة. تم عمل برامج كثيرة جدا وثرية لما يسمى الإعادة إلى المواطنة، الإعادة إلى الانتماء للمجتمع، الإعادة إلى الفهم الصحيح للدين الإسلامي وإلى الفهم الصحيح لقيم التسامح. أيضا تم وضع الكثير من الطرق والأساليب التي في الحقيقة هي قطعة السبل أمام هذه التنظيمات الإرهابية من العمل داخل المملكة بشكل مباشر، ولكن ما فتئت تستخدم وسائل التواصل الاجتماعي ووسائل عن بعد في الحقيقة للتأثير على المجتمع داخل المملكة. إذن هذه هي نتائج موجزة في الحقيقة، وأعتقد أن الأخوة الحضور الكرام والباحثين مبرمج لديهم زيارة لمركز محمد بن نايف للمناصحة غدا. هذا المركز ستتضح لكم هذه الرؤية المواجهة غير التقليدية من خلال برامج هذا المركز وما يقدمه. وحقيقة أنا أوصي في نهاية هذه المداخلة بتوصيتين، أنه هذا الإطار غير التقليدي حقيقة نوصي بأن يتم في الحقيقة التوسع فيه لكي يشمل المواجهة في الحقيقة على المستوى العالمي، لأن هذا ما نحتاجه لمواجهة هذه الظاهرة. ونوصي بحقيقة تفعيل المستوى الدولي لمواجهة هذه الظاهرة، كونه هو الفاعل الأكبر في محاصرة مثل هذه الجريمة التي ضربت مختلف أنحاء العالم. شكرا سيدي الرئيس.
So I've been told that we have only 5 minutes as of now, or they passed. Done? We can't go for a quick round of notes. We have 5 minutes? 3 minutes? Okay. So quick round. Basically about the social condition. I will raise the issue that Bernard Lewis raised, that most Muslims are not terrorists, but most terrorists are Muslims. This is a fact that we live with. Does the social condition only by itself justify this fact? I mean, make sense of this fact?
Mindful of time, no, the quick answer is no, absolutely not. You wouldn't explain why you have, for example, in a European setting, you would see much higher level of mobilizations in wealthier countries like the Scandinavian, and a much lower level of mobilization in countries like Italy or Spain, where integration levels are much lower, where poverty is much higher. You cannot look at this issue ignoring social conditions. It's crucially important. Poverty, discrimination, or perception of discrimination, which is equally, if not more important, but there's a variety of other factors that are part of the issue. It's the presence of radicalizing agents, it's a geopolitical factors, it's a psychological issues when you look at the individual. So it's all these things combined.
The culture itself. This is the big elephant in the room that everyone is avoiding. Is the culture itself has components of radicalization? Yes or no?
It depends what you mean by culture.
Is it a place to work on?
It depends what you mean by culture. I don't think there's only one Muslim culture
the
in
Islamic
general.
culture, the Islamic history, the Islamic book
I don't think
itself.
there's a specificity there. If we had had this conversation 40 years ago, we would have talked about other parts of the world where you would have other kinds of terrorism, which are still very much present today. So there's not a specificity there. Undeniably, there are elements that are misused and that cannot be ignored.
Jack, last question for you. In light of the very successful visit so far, as you said, of President Donald Trump to Saudi Arabia, how this will reflect itself on the war on terror after the 2 terms of misunderstanding between the Gulf region and the presidency of Barack Obama? How it will reflect itself, I mean, on a practical basis?
Well, I think it's clear that President Trump has indicated he wants to fight the war on terror in the Middle East in a different way, in a more aggressive way. I think there will be more use of special operations forces in Iraq and Syria. There will not be, in my judgment, any major influx of U.S. ground forces. I don't think that's going to happen. I think the president will encourage, as I think he should, the coalition building we've discussed. Islamic coalition can be a powerful element. I think we need to be patient with it, understand it will grow, it will change as events change, but I think that's the right approach that America will support with resources in many ways. At the end of the day, I think Mr. Trump's view is going to be, and he likes to use the phrase America first, that at the end of the day, local governments have got to step up and take the lead on how they're dealing with this problem.
Thank you so much. Dr. Elisabeth, any closing line? Dr. Yahya? Any closing line? You're fine. So, lady and gentlemen, thank you so much, and thank you for your attendance, and we're looking forward for the closing statement. Thank you.